came out at the very end of 2015, when some of you were just little wee kiddies. But in philosophy, the few years that have passed, that's nothing, believe me. And philosophers, I don't think should write many books in philosophy. Myself, I'm planning to write 3. The first book was my early career book. I'm now working on my mid-career book. I expect it to take me a long time. And then I'm going to write a book of wisdom when I'm old. So I'm going to give you the simple working mechanism of the book that I've got out. And then I'm going to point towards applications, which are really what I'm working on now. Okay? So let me start with the initial problem set, or initial question that I'm considering. And some of you would have seen this kind of issue in classes, so perhaps some of you haven't yet, but you will. So take as my starting point, now I'm on the handout, take as my starting point the claim that some of our thoughts are about mind-independent objects. Okay, so go and look up, go and look at me. If I say, that is white and rattling, what am I talking about? It's not a trick question. I'm talking about a piece of paper. Yeah? So some of our thoughts are about mind-independent objects, and this aboutness, yeah, the aboutness of your thoughts, is secured by a relation between the subject, that's you, and the object that you're thinking about. And there are various relations that play this aboutness fixing role. So in the case that we use, yeah, there's a relation between you and the object, which puts you in a position to think about it. And just the simplest answer to the question, what is that relation? You can see it. Yeah? So there's a perceptual relation between you and the object, putting you in a position to think about it. Sometimes what's putting you in a position to think about an object, a person, or a particular is your grasp of a proper name that in your linguistic community is used to refer to the object. So if I use the name Aniran Bevan, who knows who I'm talking about? Yeah, non-Americans only, yeah? So it's a famous British Labour Party politician, right? So if I use that name and I start telling you some things about this fellow, then you're in a position to think about him. He's long dead, he died in the 60s, I think, Bevan, yeah? So sometimes you're in a position to think about an individual in virtue of your getting hold of a proper name for them, and sometimes it's grasp of a descriptive condition to which the object is appropriately related. So Russell used this famous example, the center of mass of the universe. Can you see it? No, actually you might be able to, right? But you don't know. Can you see it? Well, probably not. Is that a proper name? Well, no. What's putting you in a position to think about that entity and speculate about where it is, or if there is such a thing, supposing there is? What's putting you in a position to think about the object is your understanding of the description. So there are these kinds of relations to objects that do put us in positions to think about them, but having allowed that much, right? Having said that a relation to the object puts you in a position to think about it, is not yet to take any stand at all on the question of how the relation does its about fixing work. So here you are, looking at the piece of paper. I say that is white, that is rectangular. We're all thinking about the piece of paper. Why? Well, because we're looking at it. How does the perceptual link put us in a position to think about the piece of paper? That question, the how question, how does the relationship about this fixing work? That's the traditional central question of the theory of reference. Now, traditional answers to that question. Think about, so let's mean by traditional 20th century, yeah? 20th century answers to that question went like this. In the beginning, right, there was descriptivism. That's the view that every single time the aboutness fixing relation is really an object satisfies the description relation. Yeah? So let's use the name Bertrand Russell. Yeah? Use the name Bertrand Russell. Is there a person, unique person you're talking about? Yes. What puts you in a position to speak about that unique person? And the view was you have hold of a description which uniquely picks out that entity. Okay, so that's a very, yeah, so there was descriptivism, yeah? And the idea that sometimes you're directly acquainted with the object. Right? I'm going to do it mine. Direct acquaintance was like this. Yeah? Sometimes you're directly acquainted with the object, but not physically, because that would be seeing it. You're acquainted with the mind's eye. Yeah? Here you are, acquainted with the mind's eye with the object. Okay? So the idea was there's this mysterious direct link between your mind and the object. So people thought that. And then the debate went around for a while. And then there was Kripke naming a necessity, which some of you have seen. Kripke killed descriptivism, everybody thinks. Kripke gave us causalism, the idea that, there's aboutness where there's a causal link with the object. Yeah? And then there are examples, and there are counterexamples, and there is actually, the thing, does it sound like it becomes a mess? Yeah, because the thing becomes a mess. There is a lot of philosophical ink spilt. There is not a resolution to this question I've called the how question. The question of how a relation to an object that puts you in a position to think about it does its aboutness fixing work. And then there is a loss of fashionability. People just start talking about something else. Okay? So that's the history of the 20th century discussion of this how question. Sounds like that question is in a bad way, doesn't it? A big mess got made, the question wasn't answered, and then it became unfashionable. Dismal. Right, so what the question needs is resetting. And here I am. I'm going to reset the question from the foundations. Now, here's what I think was wrong with the traditional approach. So take a sentence, or a thought. Sentence or thought goes, A is F, right? This is white. Or Bertrand Russell was a philosopher. A is F. Our sentence goes. And the traditional debate about reference focused on the A part, as if the is-F part doesn't exist. Focused on the A part, and it said, okay, what's the relation between the A part of the thought and the object? Is it that in having a hold of the A part, you grasp a description that the object satisfies? Is it that there's a causal link? What is it? That was the question. What I suggest is that we go back to the whole A is F unit. And what we find, if we step back from just A to A is F, we find two principles. These principles are on the handout. One of them connects truth and justification. Yeah? So what it is for a belief to be true with what it is for the belief to be justified. So that principle says justification is truth conducive. Not justification is truth guaranteeing. I think that's too strong. Justification is truth conducive, by which I mean something like, if you've got a justified belief, but it's not true, then you're somehow unlucky. Well, let's put that another way. Suppose I'm a fancy philosopher, and I say to you, well, here's my theory of justification, and you point out to me that my theory of justification leaves it a matter of chance whether a justified belief is true, then you win and I lose. Yeah? If I don't bring justification in as truth conducive in my account, then I wasn't really explaining justification at all. So that's the first principle, connects truth and justification. The second principle connects aboutness and truth. So the principle says, if my belief is about an object, its truth or falsity depends on what that object is like. So if my belief that Jack has fleas is about my dog, its truth or falsity depends on what? Well, on whether he has fleas. Okay? So we've got these two principles. One of them connects truth and justification, and the other one connects aboutness and truth. So look, so pretend I'm writing this on the blackboard. Yeah? Truth and justification, aboutness and truth. So look what we've got. A principle connecting aboutness and truth, a principle connecting truth and justification. Now, given those two principles, it's going to be very, very disappointing if we can't cut the intermediate term and find a third principle connecting aboutness and justification, that's going to be a principle which brings out the significance for the traditional theory of reference, of aboutness, of the fact that justification is truth-conducive. I'll tell you what I think that principle is, then I'll show you part of the proof of it, and then I'll show you the principle at work. Okay? So the principle is what I call reference and justification. You know, really, reference, one way to think of it is as philosophers' fancy term for aboutness. I use the term reference in homage to my supervisor's supervisor, Professor Sir Michael Dummett. Right? So reference and justification is the principle that I'm going to extract from the other two principles, one connecting aboutness, reference, and truth, the other connecting truth and justification. See? So the principle says, right, a body of, and this is on the handout, a body of beliefs is about object O if and only if its means of justification, so I'm going to say, converges on O, so that O is the unique object whose properties the subject will be unlucky to get wrong and not really lucky to get right in justifying beliefs the way she does. Okay, now that's a wee bit of a mouthful put like that, but it's actually really intuitive, and I've given an analogy to bring out the intuitive force of what the principle says. So imagine that you're an astronomer, okay? And you're looking through a telescope. The telescope is focused on an object in the night sky. Okay? So there is a data stream being delivered by the telescope. The telescope is focused on an object. You're writing down a report on the basis of the data stream. Now, which object is your report about? Right? Well, it's about the thing that the telescope is focused on. Right? Does the fact that the telescope is focused on the object guarantee that the report is going to match what the object is like? Well, no, because there might be some unlucky spoiler, like something might go wrong. Yeah? There might be a cloud of intervening cosmic dust or whatever can go wrong when you're looking for a telescope. Yeah? But the fact that your telescope is focused on the object does guarantee the following. If you end up with a report that doesn't match the object, then some unlucky spoiler has intervened. Something has gone wrong. So the principle that I've given you, reference and justification, treats the aboutness of our beliefs as a kind of focus. Remember, our question was, how is it that your perceptual link with the object is putting you in a position to think about it? Well, let's think about what thinking about the object involves. Here it is moving along, and you form beliefs that you express by saying, that's white, that's moving, that's rectangular. Yeah? What makes it the case that the object that you're looking at is what your beliefs are about? Well, according to this story that I've got, your beliefs are justified by uptake from your perceptual channel, and what makes this the object your beliefs are about is the fact that this means of justification, uptake from the perceptual channel, is going to get the object's properties right unless some unlucky spoiler intervenes. There is no other object for which this is the case. Here you are looking at the thing, you form beliefs by uptake from your perceptual channel. Why are the beliefs about the thing? Well, because it's the thing upon which the associated means of justification, namely uptake from the perceptual channel, converges. Yeah? Okay, if you're thinking of what do you mean by justification, we're going to get to that in a second. Okay, so look, the principle I've given you, this principle connecting aboutness and a kind of focus, it's a biconditional, isn't it? It's a P if and only if Q. Right? Now, how do you prove a biconditional? Biconditional's got two directions, P to Q and Q to P. How do you prove a biconditional? You prove both directions, prove each direction in turn. So I've got on the handout an argument for the if there is aboutness, right, if there's reference, then there is cognitive focus, direction of the biconditional. So let's just walk through that. Okay, so first, suppose that S's belief that alpha is phi is about object O. That notation is nothing fancy. I just mean that as shorthand for, or maybe your belief is that is white, or that is rectangular, or Jack has fleas, something like that. It's just shorthand. So S's belief that alpha is phi is about object O. We suppose that, and then we're going to derive the conclusion that the means of justification will get O's properties right unless a spoiler intervenes, using the two principles that we had earlier. Okay? So, suppose that the belief is about object O. Now add the aboutness and truth principle. That says an alpha is phi belief is true if and only if the object it's about has the property phi. Everybody with me? Okay. Now, 1 and 2 together entail S's belief that alpha is phi is true if and only if O is phi. Because 1 says O is the object the belief is about, plug that into 2, and you get number 3. Now add truth and justification. If S's belief that alpha is phi is justified, S will be unlucky if it's not true. Okay. Now we're going to combine number 3 and number 4. So number 3 says the belief is true if and only if O is phi. So take that O is phi part and plug it in for true in number 4. So 4 says if the belief is justified, you'd be unlucky if it's not true. 3 says it's true if and only if O is phi. Putting those two things together, we get if S's belief that alpha is phi is justified, S will be unlucky if O is not phi. So look what just happened. We started by supposing aboutness, that the belief is about the object O, and we derived the conclusion that if the belief is justified, the subject will be unlucky if the object doesn't have the property. Everybody with me? Okay. So that is one direction of the biconditional. Principle goes in both directions. And here I had a choice of either taking up the whole rest of the time proving the other direction, because the other direction is harder, or showing you a bit of how the framework works. So I'm going to show you a bit of how the framework works. Okay, so let's take this principle, the principle I'm calling reference and justification. And what it provides, in the first instance, is a blueprint for explanations of what it is that makes it the case that you're thinking about a particular thing. Yeah. So in any given case, so we're talking about understanding the proper name. How does the kind of linguistic competence you have when you understand the proper name put you in a position to be thinking about an object? Yeah. Well, in order to answer that question, we want to look for a kind of justification that's associated with competence with a proper name, and show that that kind of justification converges on the object out there. Yeah? Or for the perceptual case, which I'm going to talk about in a bit of detail, the answer to the question, how does the perceptual link put you in a position to think about the object, is going to go hand in hand with an account of how the beliefs that you form by uptake from perception are justified, because what we want to show is that the means of justification made available by your perceptual link will get right the properties of the object that you're looking at, unless some unlucky spoiler intervenes. Okay? So let's talk about the perceptual case in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to use an empirical claim. It's a claim which I could go on and on about psychology, papers and research. This is a claim about how the visual system works and relates to belief formation. Yeah? Now, when I was young, and people started talking about the visual system and belief formation, I would sit there, sulking on the inside, and I would be thinking, hey, why doesn't he, there's one person in particular I'm thinking about, my PhD supervisor, I'd be thinking, God, why is he talking about psychology? Why doesn't he eat only spinach and prove everything a priori like a proper philosopher? I'd be thinking. And then later on, not that much later on, I came to realize, okay, actually, if you're going to talk about how perception puts you in a position to think about an object, and about how perception justifies belief, you're going to have to suppose some view of what perception does and how perception works. And now you've got a choice. You can just make up that view in a fine philosophical fashion, yeah? Or you can actually find out a bit that scientists know about perception. Yeah. So we don't get just to make up our claim about how perception works. So here's an empirical claim, and there's good evidence for this. Okay, so the empirical claim says that the ordinary route to formation of a body of beliefs that you express using that, there's another little bit of sugar there, see? The ordinary route to a body of beliefs that you express using that, and that you treat as about a single thing. For example, your beliefs, that is rectangular, that is white, that is moving. The ordinary route to formation of beliefs of that kind is uptake from the perceptual experiences which are delivered by the kind of property from Q calculations. I'll explain this in a second. The kind of property from Q calculations that our visual systems perform within the attentional spotlight. As long as the attended object is an ordinary object, beliefs formed by this route will reliably match what it is like. So see, that's an empirical claim about a reliable result. See? Let's just cash out some of the terms I've used. So property from Q calculations. So let's look at this wall. People see the line between the unshaded part. Should I point higher up? Oh look, look. People see the line between an unshaded part of the wall and a shaded part. You see it? Yeah? So you can see that line. Does it look like the wall is different colours? Well, no. It looks like a uniformly coloured wall, partly in shadow, right? Or suppose I had a disc. Suppose I was right in front of you and I had a coin and I was turning it. Yeah. So that one way to describe what you're seeing would be to say, well, round, now it's an ellipse, or the ellipse is getting skinnier and skinnier, now it's a line, now it's an ellipse again. That's one way of describing what you see. Yeah? Does it look like the coin is changing shape? No. It looks like a uniformly shaped thing is rotating. Yeah? So what the perceptual system is delivering to us already has a whole lot of calculations complete. They're what I'm calling property from Q calculations. So you get an appearance of a property, the thing is round, yeah, and it's rotating, and those appearances and properties are being delivered by your visual system on the basis of a whole lot of cues which is to do with the way light is reflected off the thing and stuff like that. Yeah? So what the empirical claim says is, look, the property from Q calculations, yeah, such that you then form the beliefs in response to those property from Q calculations, yeah, and the belief that you form, as long as the object that you're attending to actually is an ordinary object, yeah, the belief that you form is reliably going to match what it's like. Match what it's like unless some unlucky spoiler intervenes. Okay? So we can talk about that a bit more in Q&A if people want to, but that's an empirical claim that I'm going to suppose. People have a rough idea of what that says? It's just a reliability claim. Now, some people will stop there, yeah? And there's a genre in the philosophy of mind, which would say, okay, once you've found the reliability claim, that's kind of all there is to say. Yeah. Now we're not going going to do that here, are we? No. Imagine, what's the point of being a philosopher, honestly, right? So we've got a reliability claim, yeah? And then I'm going to use the reliability claim to build an account of justification for beliefs based on perception on the one hand, and also of what makes it the case that this is the object those beliefs are about. So I'm going to use one more ingredient, and that ingredient is going to explain the title of this talk. Right? That ingredient is to do with what I'm going to call practical justification. Now, on the handout we start with the notion of justification by intention. So suppose you've got Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Yeah? You still have these familiar characters. Yeah? Everyone hasn't gone on Fortnite. Maybe they're on Fortnite, right? But Robin Hood and the Sheriff of Nottingham. Okay? So Robin is an expert archer. Oh, goody goody, right? The Sheriff of Nottingham is a bad man, but he thinks that he's a good archer. They're shooting at a willow wand stuck into the ground 200 yards away. A willow wand being a very thin piece of willow, one assumes. Yeah? They take aim, and they fire off their arrows. Okay, now think about the movements that each one is making as he prepares to shoot. And ask yourself, well, are those movements justified? Yeah? And look, there are two senses in which we can recognize that the movements are justified. So think about the sheriff on the first, on one side. Is there a reason why he's making the movements that he does? Well, yeah, those movements, they constitute his attempt to fulfill his intention, right? Now, he's a terrible archer, so even though the movements have this one kind of positive normative status, namely, they constitute his attempt to fulfill his intention, there's another kind of normative status that his movements lack, and which Robin Hood's movements have, because Robin's an expert. So I've called these two kinds of positive normative status: weak justification by an intention and strong justification by an intention. The idea is a behavior is weakly justified by an intention just in virtue of being guided, pushed along, unfolding the way it does because of the intention. And so both Robin and the sheriff, their movements have that status. In contrast, strong justification by an intention, well, a behavior is strongly justified by an intention if and only if it's both guided by an intention and a reliable means to the intention's fulfillment. If you're looking down this whole second page and thinking, how much longer is she going to go on? Yeah? Don't worry, we're just assembling ingredients, and then the big reveal is going to happen just like that. Yeah, so just hang on, bear with me for a little second. Okay, so we've talked about weak and strong justification by intentions. Now, what's an intention? What is an intention? So suppose I intend to walk across to the podium. Okay? Yeah? Could I have had that intention if I didn't have the concept of the podium? Well, no. I might have intended to walk across to the thing. Yeah. If I didn't know what that was, then I might have formed the intention, okay, I'm going to walk across to the thing. I'm going to walk across to that piece of ugly institutional furniture. Sorry, employer. Right? Yeah? But you can't have an intention unless you have hold of the concepts which figure in specifying what the intention is an intention to do. Yeah? Well, suppose that I have the intention to defenestrate something. It's not a word you see in the wild. Yeah? If you don't know what defenestration is, it's throwing something out the window. Yeah? If you don't know what defenestration is, you can't have the intention to defenestrate something. You might have the intention to throw something out the window. Yeah? So in order to have an intention to do something, you have to have the conceptual sophistication to grasp what the intention is an intention to do. Right? Now, are all of your motivational states intentions? Well, the motivational states, they're the states that push you along to action. Yeah? So, why did I walk across to the podium? Well, because I intended to. So your motivational states are states such that when I answer the question, why did she do such and such, by pointing to the motivational state, are all of your motivational states intentions? Right? Unless you're a weirdo, right? Yeah, the answer is no. Okay? So think about, think about the dog. Now, a dog can't stand to be alone under the empty vault of the sky. Right? So if you leave your dog in the garden, the dog will run under something. Okay? Does the dog grasp the concept of empty vault and sky? No. Does the dog grasp the concept of being alone? Well, probably not. Right? But there's something the dog is trying to do, which is avoid loneliness, avoid exposure. Think about a small child. Small children are motivated by the need to avoid loneliness, so are we, yeah? But a little small child doesn't grasp the concept of loneliness. So there are all kinds of motivational states, such that we are moved to action by those motivational states, and to be moved to action by the state. You don't have to have the conceptual sophistication to grasp what the state is pushing you towards. The need to avoid loneliness, the need to feel secure, the need to have a little adventure, the need for things not to be too adventurous. Yeah? These are all things which are pushing our behaviour along, and these are emotional needs, some of which we probably share with lower animals. And I suggest that we also have rational needs. And the rational need that's going to figure today is the mind's need to think about things outside itself. Okay? Anyone know the first sentence of Aristotle's Metaphysics? Aristotle said, everybody by nature needs to know. Yeah? So something in the mind that's pushing you towards knowledge. I say it's something in the mind that's pushing you towards locking onto objects as subject matter for thought. Okay? Now, when we were talking about Robin and the sheriff, we did that to introduce the notion of justification by an intention. Remember, I said that a movement or behaviour is justified by an intention, just when it's guided, pushed along by the intention. Yeah? It's the agent's attempt to fulfill the intention. And it's strongly justified by an intention if it's guided by the intention and is a reliable generator of the intention's fulfillment. Similarly here, now that we're talking about needs. Yeah? A behaviour is weakly justified by a need if it's being guided by the need, if the reason that the subject is engaging in it is in the attempt to fulfill the need, and the behaviour is strongly justified by the need if it's guided by the need and is a reliable generator of the need's fulfillment. Okay? So now we're going to put these elements together into an account of how perception justifies our most basic beliefs and what secures the subject matter of those basic beliefs. Okay, we've got all the materials in place. We just need to walk through the account, but from a distance the account is going to go like this. Put this down. Here's the little mind. Everyone look. Here's the little mind. If it's got nothing to think about, it gets very, very unhappy. Yeah? And it's being bombarded with signal from perception, from words coming out of the mouths of other people. Yeah? What does it do? Well, it uses that signal to try to tune in on objects. So you reach out with the ghostly hand of the mind and try to grab hold of subject matter for thought. Yeah? Who thinks their mind doesn't have hands? Yeah, live a little. Okay. So let's take the metaphors out. Yeah? Because of course it might. metaphors out. Yeah? And I just want to walk us through this 1 to 5 story that's here on the handout. Okay, this is under number 2.3 on the handout. So, first move, the mind needs to think about things outside itself. Yeah? And second move says, okay, formation of beliefs you'd express using that in response to a perceptual feed, what I call an attentional perceptual input. So formation of that belief, that is white, that is moving, formation of those beliefs in response to attentional perceptual input is an information marshalling activity. Why does it unfold the way you do, or the way it does? Why are those the beliefs you form when you're looking at the object moving along? Well, because you are behaving in a way which is guided by the mind's need to think about things outside itself. So you're getting this signal, and you respond by forming beliefs. Yeah? Why do you form the beliefs you do? Well, this is your attempt to lock on to objects in the world outside the mind. Now, because this activity is guided by a motivational state, namely this need you have, the resulting beliefs are weakly justified. That's weak justification by a motivational state. Okay, now we add our empirical claim. Remember, the empirical claim was a reliability claim. It says that the beliefs that you form will reliably match the object you're attending to, yeah, which is to say, they'll match the object you're attending to unless some unlucky spoiler intervenes. That's just an empirical claim. So, but if we add that empirical claim to number 2, then we get the following, which is number 3. Uptake from an attentional link with an ordinary object is a route to formation of weakly justified beliefs that reliably match what this object is like. So now you've got justified beliefs reliably matching what one particular object is like. Now we add my reference and justification principle, and that gets us, okay, so these beliefs are about that object, because this just is a cognitive focus relation. So that's number 4, the beliefs are about the object. Then number 5 is going to upgrade the kind of normativity that we had to the kind of normativity Robin Hood has instead of the kind of normativity the sheriff has. Yeah? So 5 says, given that in most cases where we get as far as forming that beliefs at all, the intended object is an ordinary object. The beliefs are also strongly justified. They're formed by a strategy that is a reliable generator of fulfillment of its guiding motivational state. Okay? Yeah? So look what we've got. We've got an account of how perception justifies our most basic beliefs, that is white, that is moving belief, going hand in hand with an account of what the beliefs are about. Yeah? Okay? So let me give you another intuitive version of the story, just to make it fall into place. There you are. Right? You're the little subject of consciousness. You're receiving all this signal from perception. Now, there are various things you could do given the signal that you're receiving from perception. So you could form the belief, okay, that is white and that is moving. Right? You're perceiving both whiteness and motion, aren't you? Yeah? But you don't tie together the motion and the whiteness into a single body of beliefs you treat as about a single thing. Rather, you say, okay, that is white, that is stationary, now it's moving. But you respond to perceptual signal in one way rather than another. Why do you respond in the way you do? Well, because you are trying to achieve a cognitive lock on things in the world, trying to achieve cognitive focus. Given the reliability claim, you in fact do achieve cognitive focus. So now look what we've got. Yeah? We've got an account according to which your beliefs are justified because they're guided by your motivational state. So you've got justified beliefs which reliably get right the properties of the object you're attending to. But where there are justified beliefs, where there's means of justification which reliably gets an object's properties right, then that object is what the beliefs are about. So we've got justification and aboutness entering the picture hand in hand. Okay? So that's the basic and moving part of the framework that I've got. Let me just gesture. Can I go for a couple of minutes? Was this too long?
5 more minutes.
It won't be more than that. It'll be like 3. Okay. So I've talked about perception and beliefs you express using that, like demonstrative beliefs. You can tell a similar story with proper names. Here you are receiving linguistic input, and you crunch the signal in a way that lets you tune in on objects in the world. But here's another kind of case, which is a case of what people call a descriptive name. So a descriptive name is a name which is introduced in association with a description. Philosophers tend to be not very imaginative, so the two big examples people use are an invented example. People say, suppose I introduce the name Julius and I say, that's going to stand for whoever invented the zip. Except if you're American, you have to say zipper. Yeah? So Julius is the inventor of the zip. Or else people say, well, Jack the Ripper is whoever perpetrated those murders. Those are descriptive names. We introduce a name in association with a description. And descriptive names are quite interesting, because they have different properties from descriptions, and they're not quite proper names. Right? So it's an interesting thing. Yeah? Okay, here's an example of a descriptive name, which is a real example. This descriptive name that's on the handout, tremulous hand. Right? So this is a real descriptive name, which is used to refer to the otherwise unidentified author of a whole load of 13th century glosses in manuscripts. A gloss in a manuscript, this means that this naughty 13th century author was doing what you're not allowed to do, namely sit in the library and write on the book. Yeah? So this person wrote in the book in distinctive, tremulous and left-leaning handwriting, and all that is known about tremulous hand is what you can derive from the glosses themselves. And among medievalists, there's this little thing trying to work out about the life of tremulous hand. Okay, so who was tremulous hand? Well, obvious answer, whoever was the author of the glosses. Yeah? So the standard account of descriptive names says, okay, well, a descriptive name stands for the person, if there is one, who is the satisfier of the description. Right? Okay, but how about this? Gedite the Blue Bard. Anybody Welsh? Yeah, how's my pronunciation, Welsh people? Gedite the Blue Bard. Right? This is a name which was used for over a century as a name for the otherwise unidentified author of a series of songs in medieval Welsh, dealing with mythical themes, employing medieval meters. Then there were rival factions of scholars, and they used evidence from the texts to argue for competing hypotheses about Gedite's life. So people are saying, oh, he's a minor aristocrat, look at these poems he wrote, and other people are saying, oh, he's a priest. But in 1956, the Blue Bard songs were shown to be the work of notorious 19th century forger Edward Williams. Okay? Was there such a person as Gedite? Well, no, surely not. But then think about that expression, Gedite the Blue Bard. Yeah? That's a descriptive name, and it's associated with a description, the author of these glosses. The description is satisfied, right, by Edward Williams. Yeah? So why don't we just say, oh, Gedite was Edward Williams? Why do we want to say there was no Gedite, the songs were forgeries? Yeah? So this is a case where a descriptive name fails to refer to or stand for the satisfier of the description, and that is a result which is predicted by the framework that I put in front of you. So what that framework says is, okay, well, how is it that when you've got grasp of a description, yeah, grasp of the description puts you in a position genuinely to think about the object? Well, grasp of a description puts you in a position to think about an object by providing a means of justification which converges on the object. What's the means of justification? When you go out and you try to prove things, get out was X, get out was Y, and so on. Yeah? In this case, by using the description of the author of the glosses and looking at the texts. Yeah? So suppose that I'm a scholar and I argue that Gedite was educated at Carmarthen. And here's my argument. I say, well, there's very good, very, very good evidence in the texts that Gedite never travelled outside Wales, but he was really educated. And the only place that you could get an education of that kind in 9th century Wales was Carmarthen, so Gedite was educated at Carmarthen. Right? Now suppose that Edward Williams, the forger, actually was educated at Carmarthen. But look, as far as my means of justifying my Gedite beliefs goes, that was merely a matter of luck. Yeah? So, in the descriptive names case, grasp of a description puts you in a position to think about an object by providing you with a means of justification which converges on an object if things go well. That object might be an object other than the satisfier of the description. And there might be no object that you're focused on, no object that the means of justification converges on, even though the description is satisfied, as in this example with that. Okay, I haven't talked about applications, but I can solve all outstanding problems in the philosophy of language.
Thank you so much. I'd like to first ask, especially among some of the people who haven't done any philosophy of language yet, does anyone have any clarifying questions or things they might have missed that they would like to get a bit clearer on?
Someone must have something. Yeah, if you're not clear on it, probably someone else in here is not clear on it either. Yeah, good.
So I have done some philosophy of language, but I'm still not clear on one of the things you said. Is that context, or can I ask?
Yeah, clarifying questions, yes.
So when you said, in order to have an intention, you need to have a conceptual sophistication to grasp the concept of your intention. Why is that? Can you not say I threw something out the window in the morning and now I've grasped the fenestration, was it? And now can I update and say I had the intention of defenestrating all along?
Well, you could do so. It's going to depend on how you individuate concepts, isn't it? Yeah. So take the case of loneliness. Yeah. So think little small child or my dog is motivated by the need to avoid loneliness. Yeah. But grasp of the concept of loneliness. Yeah. Have thoughts about loneliness, reflect on loneliness. Well, no, but they're being motivated by the need to avoid it. Yeah. So that thing that I said, the reason I put it the way I did is that intention is a propositional attitude. So your starting case of a propositional attitude is a belief. S believes that P, where P is a proposition, or S knows that P, where P is a proposition. Similarly, S intends that, and then it's a relation to a proposition, but the proposition specifies what you're planning to bring about. Yeah? And then, quite right, that it might be that it's the same proposition. I got the proposition, I just didn't have the word yet. Yeah? But that's a question about how we're individuating concepts. So all I need to get this thing going is that there are motivational states where grasp the concept at all. Now, we've just shifted things over to what is it to grasp the concept, but I could go on the whole time. So,
Yeah, in fact.
So, sounds like, are you saying intentionality is a relation between the mind and external objects, not simply between the mind and mental representations?
I have that secret agenda. Yeah. So let me address that very quickly. So yes, yeah. Here's one way to think of it. So some people want to ask whether perceptual experiences themselves have intentionality. Yeah. So is it that when you look at this, when you look up and see what's happening up here, is it that you have a mental state, a perceptual mental state, which itself represents a white square moving around? And then there's intentionality of perception, and there's the intentionality of thought, and so on. Yeah? And in this framework that I've got, there are no grounds, no grounds coming from the issue of how thought locks onto the world, which push you to saying that a perceptual experience has intentionality. You're just in a perceptual state. And then we say, well, what about cognitive states, like thoughts? In virtue of what do they have intentionality? And in this framework that I've got, the base case of intentionality is a relation between you, the subject, or me, the subject, and an object in the world. Now, I can have a failed case that there's not really anything out there, but it owes its status as a representation of the world to a similarity to the good case. Yeah? So yeah, you're just right.
So, can I follow up?
Yeah. You can get a follow-up, yeah.
So, would you say that it's not truly an intentional state if it was about a non-existent object?
So what would make it, its intentional status, or status as intentional, would be derivative. Yeah? So a status is something like, here's Robin Hood shooting at a wand, and a seagull flies past and takes the wand away, and he misses. He did everything right. Similarly, here I'm reaching out to grab subject matter for thought. In my story, intentional, so intentionality is a philosopher's fancy term for representational status or something like that. Yeah? So in this framework that I've got, you've got your mental state, and the representational story is, well, that state is a grabbing of an object in the world. Yeah? Now, suppose that the world gangs up against you, so that you reach with the ghostly hand. Yeah? You reach with the ghostly hand, and then there's nothing there. Yeah? So now what you've got is a failed attempt to lock onto an object. In the story that I've got, its normative status is the same as the status in the good case. You're a skilled practitioner, and the world ganged up against you. You're not to blame. So the justificatory story is intact, yeah? But there's no way for the world to be, which is represented by the mental state that you have, so there's no intentionality. So people have been thinking about Frege, or Frege lies in your future. This is Frege's notion of a mock thought. Normativity without truth conditions.
Thank you.
We got quite a bit. We'll get this.
I have since you're trying to get intentionality in virtue of with this justification framework and with this talk of beliefs, I'm not sure whether you can get to intentionality in cases in which you don't have, in which you don't even entertain a proposition, or in which you don't believe something. For example, the case with the mass center of the universe. I don't have any particular beliefs about it besides the obvious one, that is, it is the mass center of the universe. But So how do we get intentionality?
Okay, so let me talk about the central master universe first, just get it off my pay scale,
Yeah.
and then we'll go back to the issue of just not having beliefs in general. So I'm going to say that's not a descriptive name. So that's a case where the theory of descriptions applies. So if I say, yeah, so that's a case I want to set aside. Yeah. But let me just get to the initial question, which was, okay, so basically, why think that thinking about an object requires you to have beliefs about the object? Suppose it's visible to you just as a speck on the horizon. Prudently, yeah, you hold back from forming any beliefs. It would be, but you say, oh, what's that? Yeah, it would be very bad for my framework if I ended up saying, oh, when you said what's that, you weren't talking about the object. Because of course you're talking about the object because there's a right answer, yeah, to the question, what's that, right? So this certainly worked the telescope analogy a little bit, and structurally it will just come out the same way if we went through the details. So here you are with your telescope focused on an object. You're poised to write your report. The telescope might not be delivering any data yet. Yeah? There you are waiting. That's like the that spec case. The point is that an aboutness fixing relation does its aboutness fixing work by making available a means of justification which converges on the object. And it might be that I convince you that you're hallucinating, even though you're not. Yeah? So are you in a position to think about the object and think, oh, well, that's not the way it seems, or something like that. Yeah? Are you in a position to think about the object? Well, in this framework, you are, as long as whatever your situation is leaves intact the claim that you have available to you a means of justification which converges on the object. Yeah? So you don't actually have to form beliefs. You're just, yeah.
Actually, right here.
This may seem a bit similar to the question about the non-existent objects, but how would this theory work for, say, fictitious objects? Because I know that's been a problem for a number of theories of reference. Like, for example, it's not really true in the real world, say that like Hamlet was imprinted in Denmark. So how does it work for this?
Great. So I just wrote a paper on fiction, right? And so the story that I get is that when you're reading fiction, who is it who's reading 19th century adultery novels? Yeah, people who say English stuff, yeah? So if you're reading Anna Karenina, yeah? So what happens? Well, you take in all of this, you take in the information that's there in the utterances, and you form a representation that you would express using what seems like it's a proper name, yeah? You do so within the scope of a pretense. So you are using information to sustain a pretend-focused relation. That's the view that I end up with. Yeah, it's a good question about fiction.
Yeah.
So how is the setup sufficient to explain the entire field of mathematics? Because it seems like you don't have. Please. It seems like you've already got an answer though.
Yeah, good. I actually think, here's what I really think about the great question with mathematics. I think there were two big mistakes in 20th century, but I'm going to talk about Frege, so back to the philosophy of language. Yeah. So one was to talk about ordinary objects on the pattern of mathematics. Because Frege, the great father of us all, right? Frege, father of analytic philosophy, yeah? Was he a philosopher? No, he was a mathematician. Yeah? What was Frege's real idea of a name? Was it Hesperus, the evening star, like everybody thinks? No, right? It was the extension of the concept equinumerous with the concept of non-self-identity. His name for number 0. Yeah. So what happened with everybody following Frege and the philosophy of language? Much as Frege is a great genius, what we ended up doing was forcing our accounts of thought and talk about ordinary objects into this mold which was designed for doing things with mathematics. Yeah? Second big mistake was people following Quine into thinking that the model for accounts of thought and speech about the world is scientific theories. Yeah? So that, thinking there are people in the room is somehow the same kind as thinking there are electrons. Yeah? No. It isn't, yeah? So, the mathematical case, it's not that I want to say they're just different topics, yeah? But I want to say that there are parallels and, the differences should be explored. And, what's interesting is the parallels that there are and that there aren't. And here's one respect where the two things start to come apart, yeah? So think about how your understanding of an ordinary proper name works. Right? So say Bertrand Russell. You get the name, and then you start gathering together information into a body of beliefs you would express using the name. Yeah? So your competence with the name is all tied up with remembering stuff and storing information as a single body. Yeah? What about the expression 7? Yeah? What is it to be competent with the expression 7? Suppose what I do is I try to remember every single time that an answer to the how many question is 7. I think, that time I saw 7 things, from this other time I saw 7 things, and there were 7 days in the week, and I formed this body of beliefs I'd express using 7. But no, right? This is not competence with the mathematical expression. What is it to be competent with the mathematical expression? See, I think what Frege would have said is that it is being able to use the expression in proofs properly. Right, so mathematical singular terms like names, like 7 or 2 or something, mathematical names, understanding the name is being ready to use it in proofs. Whereas talk about ordinary objects, understanding the expression of that or the proper name is being ready to harvest and store information. Yeah? And so you're going to get just quite different looking accounts of reference. And then when you ask, okay, so are numbers objects, for example, you might ask that. Yeah? You might come back and say, here are the similarities, here are the differences. Should I be saying that numbers are objects, given that this is my account of reference? Yeah? So, in answer to your question, right, I think I'm going to get a whole lot of things to say about the mathematical case, right? But it's not going to be that the mathematical case works the same as the conceptual demonstrative case or the names case.
Alright, so we're going to have time for one more question, and that's it. Matt, yeah?
So I just wanted to know a bit more about when you were using unlucky, what you meant by it, because it doesn't just seem like an extensional, like modal claim or something. It seems something intuitive. I don't know what.
Yeah, good. So I'm working with a what some people call a bounded rationality model of rational belief formation mode or justification. Yeah. So what does it take for a belief to be rational? Right? Does the justification on the basis of which you form a belief, what does it take for a belief to be justified properly? Yeah? Does it take that you've got these factors in place which eliminate every single way for the belief to fail to be true, so that you're not justified in forming the belief until you've sat down and eliminated all the ways the belief would fail to be true? Surely not. Right? None of our beliefs would be justified in that case, and that would be a notion of justification which just has nothing to do with actual belief formation. Yeah? So I'm supposing that this notion of relevance and irrelevance from the point of view of justification, there are some ways for a belief to fail to be true, or to be true, but let's just focus on the failure case. There are some ways for a belief to fail to be true, which is such that your belief is not justified unless you rule them out. There are some ways for your belief to fail to be true, which is such that the factors that secure justification don't suffice to rule out those ways for the belief to fail to be true, in which case, going back to talking about unluckiness, you're going to end up with if one of those ways is actual, if one of those ways for the belief to fail to be true happens to be actual, you end up with an unluckily false belief, a belief which is justified but it's false, and you're not to blame, right? Now, you still want to know, all right, this notion of relevance. So I firmed up a little bit the notion of luckiness and unluckiness into this notion of relevance or not from the point of view of rationality. And then you want to know of somebody who says that, what makes a situation relevant and what makes a situation irrelevant. Yeah? So which of the ways we believe to fail to be true, such that you've got to rule them out if your belief is to count as justified? Question. Yeah. I haven't tried to answer that. What I have done is show, I think everybody who's talking about justification for belief is actually going to need an answer to that question. Even if you've got some threshold notion, then it's just going to become more of a boundary, whatever. Right? A question in this ballpark is there for everybody, unless you're some nutcase who says, no, you can't justify false beliefs. You know, right? So if you think they can be justified false beliefs, you have to you face this question about relevance and irrelevance from the point of view of justification. And what I've got here is an account of which way you jump on that question. Yeah? An account of how that decision is going to impact something you might not have thought it would impact, namely your account of what your beliefs are about. Yeah? And so then maybe we can push forward with respect to an answer to the relevance-irrelevance question by using the theory of reference. Yeah? And then, I mean, I see Spencer wiggling. Yeah? But look, you're right that's a good question. I didn't try to answer it, and that's just the question going off into the distance at this point.
All right, so that's final round of applause for. We will be going, not all of us, but we will be going to